Hello, and welcome to my tiny tarot practice. My name's Amelia Ruby, and this practice is my tiny tarot practice. I've been reading tarot since early 2016 when I ordered a deck off of Amazon while I was out at a bar. Shout out to the Whistler and my friend Michelle, who I was with that night. And since then, I've had an off and on relationship with the cards. I started reading for myself during a time when I was really struggling to find my place in the world. And I remember how often the Hermit and the Tower came up during those early years of reading and getting to know my deck. Since then, I have gathered many, many tarot decks. I certainly have over a dozen in my home at this point, and books about tarot and new spreads and ideas and practices and courses along the way. Sometime in late 2021, I felt really called to start a more formal study of tarot. I had been reading on different decks for myself, mostly by pulling cards and then looking to the guidebooks that came with the deck to tell me what they meant. And for the first time in my practice, after over 5 years of reading tarot, I was actually feeling called to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is considered a more, one of the most popular, common, perhaps traditional decks that people read from, a deck that had always felt very sterile and even masculine to me. But I felt really called to that deck, and I felt really called to study tarot as opposed to just turning to it as a tool in a time of need. And so in late 2021, I spent a few months doing card pulls and studying the major arcana and sharing those explorations with a dear friend. Shout out to Lillian if you're listening to this. And I found myself taking courses like various courses from Lindsay Mack, a course on body positive tarot with Virgie Tovar. And I really just felt like I wanted even more. I felt my relationship to this tool evolving from one of simple support, perhaps, to a desire to get to know it in a deeper way, in a spiritual way, I would say. And that corresponded with me starting to read more for friends, with acquaintances reaching out, hearing that I'd done a reading for someone else, wanting a little to hear how my approach to tarot and what I was doing with the cards. That all happened in the fall of 2021, and then it was 2022, and I found myself immersed in my life and my new business, and all of a sudden I looked around and it was May of 2022, and I hadn't studied a single card. I'd barely pulled a single card in the first 5 months of the year. I was feeling so spiritually, devotionally thirsty. Thanks to my mentor and friend, Mary Grace, for pointing that out to me, for using that word. It feels so apt. I felt parched. I felt dehydrated. I felt like I was so caught up in my day-to-day life that I was not paying attention to my practice, that I was ignoring my spirit. And so I decided I wanted to recommit myself to my tarot practice. And I wanted to do that with a little bit of accountability and a little bit of care. And I also wanted to do it in a way that would really support me learning the cards, me really integrating what they mean into my practice and into my body and into my teachings and all of my works. And knowing myself, I know that one of the best ways I learn is through synthesizing and sharing. I was a teacher at a university for over 5 years. And what I learned is that teaching was my favorite way to learn. So I'm not here to set myself up as a teacher. I don't claim to have any expertise in tarot. Really, I'm here to share. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to participate in this beautiful practice that have been passed down for so many years. So if you're tuning into my tiny tarot practice and you know me from any of my many creative endeavors, if you've read 50 Feminist Mantras or listened to 50 Feminist States, or you know about my podcast studio, Softer Sounds, this will probably feel like a very natural extension of me as you've gotten to know me with a very specific area of practice in the tarot. And if you're new to me, welcome. I'm so excited you're here, and it's such a joy to get to know you. This podcast is short form. I called it my tiny tarot practice for a reason. Episodes will come in around 5 to 10 minutes at most. I'm going to explore the tarot card by card, starting in the minor arcana with the suit of wands. And we'll go from there. I'll share new episodes most Mondays and Thursdays. And I'll keep exploring the tarot card by card, suit by suit, through the minor arcana and then eventually into the majors. If you're completely new to tarot, if words like minor arcana and major arcana don't really mean anything to you, I'd highly suggest you check out the link to my bookshop reading list in the show notes. That'll provide you with some of the books that I've read to get to know tarot a little better and to give you a bit more of an introductory relationship, to give you an introduction to what tarot is. I called this podcast my tiny tarot practice because it really is about my practice. And I'm sharing that with others because I've know through my human design and my lived experience that that's one of the most special ways that I can learn and invite others to get to know me and into my practice. So if you're brand new to tarot, check out that list. If you've been reading tarot for a long time, still look at it. There are great books and decks on it. And of course, if you make a purchase through that link, I get a small percentage of your purchase. And that's a way to support this ongoing podcast, or to keep this podcast ongoing if you enjoy taking a card by card approach to tarot with me. I bring everything that I am to this podcast, to my tarot practice, to the practice I share here. So I will always bring a feminist approach to tarot. I will always be thinking about power and gender and care and compassion and support as I weave my interpretations of the cards together. I'll always have in mind how these tools can help us connect with our intuition, can help us resist capitalist, patriarchal, white supremacist norms in our society. Whether I'm naming it in that language or not, that is what I'm intending to do in my interpretation of tarot. I'll also say, in the sense that I say I'm not an expert, I'm not going to, this podcast is not going to take you into tarot history or, again, teach you about where the cards came from, or even an overview of the cards themselves necessarily. Each episode will be a very personal interpretation of the cards. And really, I'm here because I want to develop a personal relationship with each card in the tarot deck. I want to no longer rely on guidebooks, no longer rely on these books I've collected about tarot. I'd like to have my own interpretations. I understand there can be danger in divorcing yourself from a tradition. I completely believe that it's important. You're going to hold up a tool or use a tool or be a professional tool user, professional tarot reader. I think in that case, it's very important to present the context of the cards and these tools that you're using. But I'm not presenting myself as such. Even if I ever do offer readings through this podcast, which perhaps will come in the future, it's not in the form of tarot being my profession. It's in the form of tarot being my practice. And I'm here to share that practice with you and invite you to develop your own practice. I hope that this podcast can kind of create many, many more card by card podcasts. Lots of other people talking about their interpretation of each card. So many of us exploring our personal practices through this shared practice. I'll add one final note, which is that this podcast is unedited. I'd say I channel it, but I'm not sure I'm channeling it from anywhere. I'm speaking from the heart, and I'm releasing perfectionism. I'm releasing my podcast editing practice as I embrace my tarot practice. And I think I feel a little self-conscious about that because I do run a podcast studio. I do want my clients to think of my work as thoughtful and edited and carefully crafted, but this is a space where I'm inviting myself to be a little more free to explore and to be thinking about the words I'm sharing more than the production of them. So I'll say that here, and then I think I'll release any stress or shame that may arise if the sound's a little off, or I say something wrong, or I need to go back and start over. Thank you so much for tuning in to my tiny tarot practice. I'd be happy to receive notes or voice messages or care in my inbox at hi@ameliafruby.com if you want to reach out. And otherwise, I think it's time for us to begin. Thank you for being here.